first and foremost, you know him as Ritholtzman. I know him as Benji Ritholtz. Benji, how are you, man?
Doing great. Just got back from my own little vacation. And we're back at it. So great to be with you both. Very excited.
Excellent. Love it. What type of vacation? By the water?
Yeah, just a couple days on the beach. Yeah, we got away. It was nice. Left the kids with my parents. Can't ask for anything more. It was great. Refreshed.
Yeah, I bet.
Ready to go.
And as someone who is also not a father and probably does not know the feeling of leaving their children with other people.
Oh, it's devastating.
We don't have them. I'm sure it's
we miss them dearly.
100%. With me, of course, as well is Andrew Claudio. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy. What up, Benji? Jeremy, you're like a couple days away from your own little vacation. And you also don't have to leave. You will also be leaving any kids behind for your trip. So look at us going on vacation without kids. It's a blast, isn't it?
It really is. You know, the plants can survive for a little bit and then they'll be fine.
Are you? Is that you? You're a planter?
I try to be. I mean, that one that you can see is like definitely on the way out.
Yeah, it's not looking great.
It's not. It's a little sad. Started with a little too much sun, and a little too much water, and you know that's why I got a ZZ plant as well. Can't kill those. It's impossible. It's great. It thrives in low light. It's kind of like me, and maybe you too, Benji, considering our complexion and our hair. And speaking of hair, if you're watching this on Friday and then you're watching Monday's episode, you'll notice that Andrew and I have developed this incredible gift. Mm-hmm. And that is that we can grow our hair out and then grow it back in and then grow it back out again. So really, it's mystical stuff, but we found a way to do it. It's pretty cool.
The perks that come from 10,000 subscribers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what happened here. Perfect. In the meantime, though, we're here to talk about some basketball. Benji, you have kids, so that's what you take.
There's no time for plants.
There's no time.
No.
Oh man,
I'm just trying to keep my kids alive. Plants will be dead within days.
Yeah, that's fair. Honestly,
yeah,
legit spit take, Benji. That caught me off guard. People will see that on the YouTube. That I legit just spit up my Red Bull. That caught me very much off guard. Anyway, Jeremy, we are already off the rails. I'm leaving it to you to steer the ship today.
Absolutely. So we've got something fun planned. Well, we really want to take a number of different questions that we've each come up with. And essentially, they range from Knicks to basketball to some maybe even non-basketball questions. And none of us has seen the questions that the other people have. And we're going to ask it. And we're going to see what the responses are. So fun little off-season content that we got going here.
Very much a shoot the shit, but with some organized chaos as far as coming up with questions that we've always wanted to ask. Just us three. Like we're the supporting cast, if you want to call John the Jeter of it all. We're the rest of the core four, with Chris being like Bernie Williams in this scenario.
Wouldn't he be more Robinson Cano?
Oh, the younger.
He's younger.
Okay, maybe.
Right. I mean,
but I was going for the core. Part. You see what I was saying? The core four.
Core 4 plus. You know? Yeah. Like, okay. Maybe he's A-Rod in this case.
No.
Although no, that wouldn't be fair to him.
All I know is both comparisons have been performance enhancing drug users. That's all I know. So I don't know what you're trying to say about Chris. But
yes,
Chris,
you
give us your pee, buddy. We gotta know.
We have our suspicions, Chris.
Yeah. So who wants to go first?
Why don't you go first? Just because I know you have more questions than I do.
So I will start with two for Benji because they are a settle of a debate that I need you to do between Jeremy and I. The first was during one of the playbacks this year. I think it was during the finals. We argued about the merits of defensive players in the NBA. I'm a big Draymond fan. I think what he does cerebrally on the basketball court, if that's a word, I just think he's like the smartest defensive player that I've seen. He's always in specific spots, and whether a player scores on him or not, it's usually not an easy basket. And Jeremy was arguing the merits of you can't pass him the ball on offense. He's a liability. And like, don't let me misrepresent you, but it was like,
say it like that.
Listen, I would argue that if anything, but the point was like, if we were going through the list of players you would draft in a Celtics Warriors series, and like, would you take Marcus Smart or Draymond? And I was like, Marcus Smart's overrated, and Jeremy was like, he's the defensive player of the year. And I was like, half the country voted for Trump. Voting doesn't matter. And it was one of those types of things where it was like,
which also like that puts me on like
right.
that side.
I know I was putting you in the corner and no one puts Jeremy in a corner. The point is, as somebody who studies film as closely as you do, I feel like there's no real, and like, correct me guys if there's an analytic that's figured this out, but there's no real stat to tell you who's a good defender and who isn't. There are ones that have tried, but the eye test really is what matters the most when it comes to determining defense. So Benji, if you'd like to weigh in on the how good is Draymond, how bad is Marcus Smart debate, and who do you consider some of the better defensive players in the NBA?
Wow. Thanks for putting me on the spot right off the bat here.
You're welcome.
This question specifically
signed
for
up
me.
for. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that offensive play is more valuable in a vacuum than defensive play. Or I guess the skill set is more valuable because it's rarer and harder to find and is less attributable to things like effort, which is a skill, but is one that I think more guys can kind of reach towards and find. So I think when you're comparing like a purely defensive player to a purely offensive player, I think you always want to skew to the offensive skill set. It's also more easily taught defense. But that said, a guy like Draymond is so instinctual, as you mentioned, Andrew, and he's so special on that end of the floor that he does provide tremendous value. But you look at, I think a good example I like to talk about is Matisse Thybulle, who is probably the best perimeter defensive player in basketball right now. Mm-hmm. I think certainly as a wing defender, he leads the league in deflections almost every single, and you watch him, and I mean, the eye test confirms everything that you see in the statistics defensively and the metrics defensively. Like, he's very, very special. And yet he struggles to find the floor in playoff scenarios. And because he is so tremendously limited offensively. And I think that tells you a lot. There are guys, obviously, that are really good offensive players and get hunted on defense who also struggle to get big minutes. But I think there's it's anyone who's as elite as Thybulle is on defense. If they were that elite on offense, they'd get minutes in the playoffs, no matter what their defensive level was. So I think that he's kind of an illustrative example of the difference between offensive and defensive talent and what they mean in the highest stakes settings. Draymond is interesting because while he is certainly a liability offensively, he has found through chemistry with one of the greatest players of all time, he is able to lift that team in a way that most guys who have his offensive limitations could not. And he's almost an individual case study. It's hard to compare him and contrast him to other players because he's only played for this team with this guy and they've developed a beautiful chemistry. What would it look like on another team? Mm-hmm. It's almost impossible to even say. And you look up a guy like Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart has developed into a good enough offensive player. He makes enough shots. He's a pretty decent distributor, although a flawed one. Like, he was the point guard on a team that just made the finals. And it's not like you can't just like let Marcus Smart shoot anymore. Like, those days are over where he's a respectable enough shooter and a smart enough playmaker that even with a couple of head scratching decisions, he'll make a game with the ball. He gives you enough on offense where the phenomenal defense that he provides makes him a no-brainer to be on the floor basically at all times. So it's kind of a spectrum. I don't know if I really answered your question. It depends on the player, but Draymond is so unique that it's almost it's almost like you have to analyze him separately from everybody else. But generally speaking, you have to reach a certain floor of offensive capability to make yourself into a solid rotation guy on a great team. Roberson's another example in Oklahoma City, who was surrounded by some of the best talent of all time. And like, it was a problem for them at times that he could not do anything on the offensive side of the ball.
Is that where Frank finds his role if he stays with Dallas?
Yeah, so
developed similar chemistry with Luka.
Frank's a great example. I mean, because he plays. He's a wing. He's not a big like Draymond. He's not going to be setting screens or stuff like it's different. But Frank's another example.
Yes,
where
David Fizdale. He's a small forward. So
sure, yeah. I don't ask David Fizdale. I don't ask him much of anything. Frank's another example though, where like, yeah, if Frank could become truly a solid offensive player who didn't really struggle to make plays off the dribble. And like always had, even if the shot has come a pretty long way, it's still not really reliable. That's an easy rotation player. And he's not. And he's been in 2 places now. Like he filled in for Dallas admirably, kind of situationally. And we always knew he could do that. Like, and he does a lot of really good things, but it's going to be hard for him to find a real like role on a great team unless the offense really kind of takes a step up.
Okay. Jeremy, are you okay with that rebuttal to our debate there?
I am, because I also when I said it originally, it wasn't slandering Draymond. It was just believing that, as Benji's saying, the offensive part of it is so crucial. Like if we kind of want to tie it to where the Knicks are, obviously the Knicks are not in that stratosphere of talent. But what I love about what the Knicks do is for essentially, I mean, really the guard spots, but maybe a little bit more small forward, at least that might be moving forward. Like there is a strong focus on pull-up shooting, catch and shoot. Like they don't want players who are potential liabilities and can't create for themselves. Like Frank, obviously he can spot up really nicely, but that was his role. And the Knicks like players who can do more than kind of, I don't want to say plug and play, because like Grimes is a plug and play guy and he also had the ability in college to pull up. It's just more, if you look at the offensive ratings of the teams that have won and the defensive ratings of the teams that have won, the teams traditionally have had higher offensive ratings than defensive ratings. So it's like, to me, defense wins championships, sure. But at the same time, offense is arguably better. You just can't be bad on the defensive end. And you could deal with the same problem on the other hand. It's just, yes, as Benji's saying, having Steph Curry really helps you out of a lot of jams. Sort of thing where Draymond, I'm sure, would say you could put him anywhere and he'll be great. And maybe that's the case for some teams, but you need the right fit around him. And with someone like Marcus Smart, I don't think it's nearly as severe limitation wise. I think you can make him much more adaptable than if Draymond is being featured in your offense as good of a playmaker and passer as he is.
Yeah, I think I have a blind spot when it comes to, I think I value defense a little more than I probably should. I grew up watching basketball in a time where 80 points won games a lot. So the Ben Wallaces of the world, those Knicks teams in the late 90s were, I mean, some bully ball as well. But like I valued the staying in front of your man, the playing defense with your feet. And I maintain that while Chauncey Billups won the finals MVP in 2004, you go back and watch those games, being able to put Ben Wallace on Shaq and it not completely mess up your defensive strategy was such a key tool for me, that while Shaq like went off in game 4, the rest of the series, he was kind of, I don't want to say neutralized, but you didn't have to double him. And that's the first time I ever saw a team, as with the Lakers, not double Shaq in a playoff series. And I think that's just something I value a lot, is the guys that still play that style of defense while recognizing, and it leads into a question I've got for later, the offensive side of the ball has probably become a lot more valuable as guys have become more skilled offensively. The only other question I have for you, Benji, that I guess, Jeremy, you could answer this too. A player that you realized through film study was either better than you thought they were, or it was worse than you thought they were, and it was just the film breakdowns that revealed that to you.
That's a great question. Someone that's kind of near and dear to recent Knicks history is Brunson, who I kind of knew that he was really good, and I had watched enough Mavericks games to know that he was good. And I obviously watched the playoffs where he was spectacular. But I also was kind of, when I went into kind of the deep dive into Brunson, my thought was, all right, he cooked the Jazz. We know he cooked the Jazz. We also know the Jazz play a very specific type of defense and have very specific defensive personnel that were kind of perfect for Brunson to deal with. And he torched them because of it. And I was like, how much does this translate? I know the numbers are really good, but I kind of want to watch. And you come away realizing that there is a special talent and skill level that he has breaking guys down off the dribble, that you have to kind of watch a ton of him to kind of understand, and the variety with which he attacks, the vast amount of moves that he has, that he can go to at any time, both directions. I came away with like a greater appreciation of who this guy was, and it made me extremely excited to watch him this coming year, because there's a craft that you just have to appreciate, like how much work he put into and like making dudes look silly with just like, he's just got an unbelievable arsenal of things that he can go to. So that's a guy that just like kind of deep diving into his game, I came away with a greater appreciation for what he does.
Okay. Jeremy, you can either answer the question or say good answer, Benji, and ask your first question.
I'll say Caruso, just because, he started out more as a meme. Like, hey, look at this guy. It's hilarious. And you watch him play and he's just relentless. Mm-hmm. He's really fun to watch. Yeah.
Let me say one non-Knicks addition too, because I watched so much Brunson film. I actually tweeted about this. So he's obviously running a ton of pick and rolls with Dwight Powell, who I know Mavs fans like. He's kind of like the guy that takes a lot of crap because he's a little bit one-dimensional. He can't shoot, can't space. And like the Mavs are undoubtedly at their very best when they can play Kleber at the 5 and space out around Luka. It's pretty much unstoppable offensively. But you watch enough Dwight Powell, and especially when you're a Knicks fan and you've watched Mitchell Robinson screening 100 times a game for however long, that guy is such a smart and good screener and just understands angles and makes nice plays off the catch. And like, what a solid big, probably best as a backup big maybe. And I understand why him as the starting 5 can be frustrating, but like you just watch enough pick and rolls, and I watched a gazillion of them, and it's like, oh, this guy just gets it. He understands how to free up a guy. He understands how to rescreen. He understands how to seal, all the kind of the little things, the screening craft that unfortunately our center does not yet possess. You see in spades in Dwight Powell. That's another guy.
It's funny you mentioned that though, because today NBA University, which is a great account, they had screen assists per 75 possessions, and Powell ranks like it's a little over 6, I think he does. And then you look at Mitch, and it's around 4. And on the right side though, you've got Hartenstein, who's around 5, but the assists that he provides, in addition to that, just passing wise, right? Yeah. Like it makes up for it in more ways than one.
Yeah, that stat is interesting because obviously, if you play with Luka and Brunson and you're screening for those guys, as opposed to like last year's Kemba, RJ, and the spacing kind of situation, I think like screen assist is just measuring. It's not like pretend like it's measuring the amount of buckets that were scored. So obviously, a lot goes to the ball handlers too there, but I think it's nonetheless very true, just based on watching, that Powell is eons above Mitch as a screener and kind of figuring out how to free up his guards.
All right. We'll start with you, Benji. Give me your dream closing lineup for the Knicks this season with the players currently on the roster.
Closing lineup. Dream, right? So the reality doesn't have to matter?
Does not have to matter.
Okay.
And is it about like winning maximum amount of games? Is it about the team's future? Is it about like what joy of watching?
What's the score?
I'm gonna leave it up to you.
There's so many ways to go with this.
It's a tightly contested game.
Oh man!
And you have to put 5 players. You're trying to win. Let's say you're trying to win.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think a theme's going to come up here. Go ahead, Benji.
Oh man.
That theme wasn't necessarily what I was going for, but I understand.
Okay. So Brunson. That might be the only one I'm sure of. Oh, RJ. Brunson and RJ, I'm sure of.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
Why do you hate RJ Barrett? No, RJ. Literally after that, I could go in a whole lot of different ways here. Wow. Yeah, I'm dreaming. So I'm going to dream that Julius Randle turns into not 2 years ago Julius Randle, because I don't want him to play that way. It turns into the version of Julius Randle that I dream of, which is a guy who makes more shots, but makes quick decisions, screens, rolls, uses his passing ability. If that player exists and I dream that he exists, then if I'm trying to win the game, he's my 4. So he's in there. And now between Mitch and Hartenstein.
No, just very quickly. Interesting that your dream involves Randall the 4, maybe not more of a small ball 5. Get RJ at the 4. Yeah.
I don't believe that defense is good. I want to see that lineup,
sure,
whether it's Obi or Randall at the 5 in spurts. I don't want it closing a game. I don't believe in the defense that unit would provide enough. So that's why I'm saying in the 4. And I do want either Hartenstein or Mitch. It's probably matchup dependent with those two guys. They bring very different skill sets. Kind of depends on the opposing center. How are they playing it?
There's no easy answer, just given how different all of these teams are in the situations. Yeah.
It's a great question though. I would say I'll put Mitch in there because I think he'll provide, no matter the matchup, the athleticism, the rebounding, the defense that I want from, and especially in a Tibbs system that I need from my 5. And now it's between Grimes and IQ, because I don't want Fournier in there with Brunson to close a game. I'm going to go with Grimes. I'm going to go with Grimes to shore up the perimeter defense, to allow to guard the best perimeter offensive player and allow RJ to play help side, which is his best role on defense, to hide Brunson on the worst offensive wing. I like that defensive lineup a little bit more than IQ, just because of the size and the strength that Grimes can bring on the perimeter. So that's what I'm going with. Brunson, Grimes, RJ, Dream Randall, and Mitch.
Dream Randall. I love that. Same lineup as Benji, but swap Randall for Obi. Yeah, I'm a believer in the last 11 games. I flat out am.
I love Obi Toppin. Don't make this into me not loving Obi Toppin.
No. You prefaced it with the dream version of Randall.
Yeah, I think that because that version of Randall is so good. It's so good if he exists. He's such a talented dude.
My lineup has a little more spacing is what I'm going for, at least. And especially, I'm talking about last 11 games, Obi Toppin.
That's true. The dream
not
Obi.
Not first 71.
Dream Obi's making 40%.
44 is the last, and on high volume. Listen, the 45-point game or the 42-point game and the 35-point game. I don't think Obi Toppin is going to be taking 14 and 9 threes a game in an ideal role, but I am believing in the fact that the shot's there. And if I have Mitch on the floor, I don't want Randall next to him, because that's 40% of my starting 5. And so let's see if RJ gets that number up again, or my closing 5 that can't make a 3. And if you open the lanes up a bit and give Obi the chance to cut a little more, you can have RJ have open lanes to the rim. You could have, I'd even consider Hartenstein instead of Mitch, but I think some rim protection would be ideal in this situation. Yeah, I'd go Obi instead of Randall. Again, dream situation, not going to happen, but dream situation.
So you see Obi cutting more than he did last year, even though Tibbs is still doing the same system. It's more. I think
the opportunities to cut will be more opportunistic because he'll have a point guard that might look for him more.
I think if he plays with Hartenstein, you'll see more cutting.
So maybe Hartenstein would be the 5 I go in with.
Once that ball gets entered to the elbow, they clear the baseline and you can do all sorts of things down there. And I would hope Obi would take it. I think Obi would take. He's a good cutter when he has a chance. There's just nowhere to go right now.
Yeah, isn't that where Hartenstein got into most of his trouble though with turnovers in that type of situation?
Yeah. Yeah, I just think the benefits outweigh the risks. I think, he's a high risk passer, but and I just can't wait for the first crazy pass that he throws at Tibbs. Tibbs' reaction is going to be priceless. But overall, I think it's a value add, and I feel like RJ could take such advantage. He doesn't get to cut much. Even like playing a little high low, where you can go to Hartenstein on the elbows and guys can duck in for like quick post ups. Even Brunson, if he has a small point guard on him, he's such a good post player. Mm-hmm. I hope that they institute some Tibbs, Joakim Noah flashback offenses where they play through the elbows when Hartenstein's in the game, and they can give a little bit of a different look, which I think is much needed. I think their offense gets so predictable. They run the same stuff down the stretch every single game. And if to add a little bit of like an elbow hub is like, it's something that you haven't shown. It would be really cool.
I'm not surprised. Well, I just want to say, I understand obviously why you might not pair the two of them, but there was no thought given by either of you to one Derrick Rose, which I find interesting, because if Derrick Rose is healthy, isn't there a compelling argument that he should be closing?
What's the lineup though?
To me, it would have to be over Brunson.
That's the thing. It's over Jalen Brunson.
I understand the reason why with pairing them, it might not be the easiest situation.
Yeah.
But it's not like they couldn't play off each other. Then you look at the defensive side and the drop off that might exist there. But it was more just as I'm listening, like, man, not even. I get why Brunson's there, but not even a thought with D Rose.
It's a great point. And as good and Rose is I think he's higher up on, like, if you just have to win a game in 5 minutes, I think Rose is higher up on like the point guards in the league list than people would think. Like, he's in a short burst and like he's so good still. But I think Jalen Brunson's at this stage is better. I think he's better.
Also, are those the only 5 minutes he has to play? Because then I know I'm not overusing him by just playing those 5 minutes down the stretch.
So it's just finishing games.
Yeah.
Well, so that I think is my hesitation for Derrick Rose. We saw what high volume minutes Derrick Rose looked like 2 years ago, and he closed pretty much every fourth quarter for the Knicks, and it was great. And then it ran out of gas the following season when they tried doing the exact same thing, and he, had the injuries come up. I think the ideal role for him is that late first quarter, most of the second quarter spark plug, and it's a 20 to 22 minute player that is giving you max value during those 22 minutes. Brunson being a point guard worth a damn as a partner to him. And this is not disrespectful to Manuel quickly. I'm just more of disrespect to Kemba and Alfred Payton, that you won't need as many 38-minute Derrick Rose performance or even 30-minute Derrick Rose performances because you have Jalen Brunson.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So, what's yours, Jeremy?
I'm going to go with Benji's dream lineup, but I'm going to swap out IQ for Grimes.
I hear it.
I just think the wingspan that you have there, I understand that Grimes might be a better point of attack defender, but just to me, I trust IQ more down the stretch than I do Quentin Grimes at this point in time. Granted, I understand it's all dream. Like if we're talking about, hey, Julius Randle being the dream version that we see of him, so why can't Quentin Grimes be the dream version that we might see of him? I get that, but there's something about quickly in a closing lineup that we've seen so many times. Like he has it. You just know when you see him that he has that. He has the stuff.
He's another shot creator on the floor too. Yeah,
exactly. So
I like it. I think the matchups are also going to matter, Yeah. Sure. So I think quickly would be my next man up if that was the consideration. Like I'm subbing in quickly before I sub in Julius Randle is going to be my take on that.
It's fair.
Yeah,
I thought one thing I thought about that I ended up opting away from, but and it's because of the roster construction and the way Tibbs thinks. I don't think we'll see a lot of this lineup, but something like Brunson, Quickly, Grimes, RJ,
At
Mitch.
the 4. Yeah.
That could be a powerhouse offensive lineup, I think, and might be able to do just enough scrambling on defense with Mitch on the back line to hold up. And RJ might have some really favorable matchups if you do it that way. I really like that lineup. If they can get to it, I don't know about to close, but if they can get to it at all. Problem is, we're all crying for Obi to play more. So even if Obi's splitting minutes with Randall, like they're going to have a 4 on the floor basically at all times. It just is what it is.
It has to be an injury. That's the reason why RJ would play more, or foul trouble. That's so.
Oh, and by the way, I should and with that lineup, honestly, even better than Quickly in that lineup might be like an actualized Cam Reddish to bring a lot of size. So you could have Brunson, Grimes, RJ, Cam, Mitch. Now you got real size at the wings to protect a little bit for the fact that you downsized. If Cam can provide enough shooting and space, like that's really interesting. I'd love to see it.
And I know he's not on the team right now, but cut to all of this being moot because the 4 ending the game is Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that look is on your face is how I feel. But again, I'm at the point where
it's my nightmare closing lineup.
Yes, it's not your dream. Yeah, it's not my dream either.
Alfred Payton, bad Julius Randle, Evan Fournier. This is my nightmare. Nerlens Noel backing it up.
And 38-year-old Carmelo Anthony. Yes, 39-year-old Carmelo Anthony at this point. Okay. Even I, the mellow stan of the pod, would be upset by that lineup. Mm-hmm. Benji, your first question.
All right, we're going to change direction a little bit. Change the vibe here. So if you could adopt a gameplay rule from any other sport and plug it into NBA basketball, what would it be?
Benji, this is the greatest question you've ever asked. Oh my God.
Thank you.
So
are we talking any sport or are we talking the 3 other major US sports?
Any sport.
Any sport. Okay. Where were you going with that? Are you going to cricket to get a rule?
Like soccer. Soccer's not considered one.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Like you've got yellow cards. I mean, you sort of have that with techs and
with flagrant 1s and 2s. Yeah.
2 techs. Yeah.
Wow.
If you guys need time to think, I can pitch one. I have a couple in mind.
Pitch a couple.
All right. So my first, and this is a corner I've been on for a long time, is I'm going to soccer. No more timeouts. Get rid of timeouts.
There are too many. Yeah.
Okay.
Get rid of them. No. I don't need any.
You just
soccer. They get out there and they play, and the coach coaches from the sideline, and that's it. And to me, one of the strangest things about basketball, this idea, and I think it's the only sport in which this is a thing, where you could be in trouble. You're trapped in the corner. That means the defense executed and the offense did not execute. And you get a get out of jail free card. You get to call it because the coach goes like this and everyone just leaves the floor and you get to start over again. Like the actual parallel, it is insane. Mm-hmm. And everyone has to stop. Now, it could have been a fast break dunk, which would have been exciting. They could have made an amazing escape, which would have been exciting. No. We're going to call a timeout so the coach can talk to the players. That is insane. And it's only in basketball. And you think about it, like try to draw a parallel to football. Can you imagine a defensive lineman is rushing a quarterback? He's about to get him.
Quarterback just calls
timeout. There's literally the parallel. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. It is insane. So that is my first proposal. Get rid of timeouts. Certainly live ball timeouts, which is the worst. They should not exist. It's insane.
Okay. I like it, Benji. You mentioned the speed of a soccer game is. I'm not as big into soccer. There's just not enough scoring for me. But the speed of a soccer game,
I'm there.
The action's there for 45 minutes, then extra time, and then you take a break.
Yep.
It's why I understand the hype around it. My first one will be from soccer. I don't know if this is too much of an institutional change, but I'm for relegation to eliminate tanking. If it would even help eliminate tanking. So that way you're only in a certain portion of the league that allows you to compete, and then you have to get out of that portion if you lose too many games.
I love relegation. I did say gameplay, so this is a bit outside.
I'll think of a gameplay one, but I
agree with you wholeheartedly. Yeah. The relegation's the best way to handle tanking is just never going to happen, just based on the business of the NBA. Mm-hmm. But
if you're in the lottery, you need to have 2 years of not in the lottery before you can actually play for a title. I don't know how you would police it, to be honest, but that would be a start to it. All right, I'll keep trying to think of a gameplay one. Jeremy, do you have one?
I'm still thinking of a gameplay one, but I will, similar to what you said, Andrew, I'll do one more, which is I feel like I actually enjoy the fact that the Premier League doesn't have playoffs. You know, they have other trophies. There's UEFA and Champions League and Championship League and all that. The idea of creating not a mid-season tournament, but one that actually makes the regular season more competitive.
Yeah.
That would be how you solve a lot of your resting players because you want to save them for later. And, you know, obviously the way that the basketball is set up, the title is going to be the most important thing. But if there's some way where you can incentivize the competition so that it's not like, oh yeah, that team's running away with just home court advantage. And you look at the Suns, is like, did it matter? No, you were obliterated in Game 7 by the Mavs. So it's important, of course, but it'd be kind of fun to see, like, if you want to make basketball more competitive, maybe you don't penalize teams, incentivize them in some way. But I know that's not gameplay, so I will also try to think of something.
But that is amen to everything you just said. I couldn't agree more with any of that. I'll say a second gameplay one that we can move on that I thought of. Now, this one's going to take a little more creativity, and I haven't worked out all the kinks yet. The timeout one is like an obvious one that's pretty easy to institute. This one's a little harder, but if similarly for game flow reasons, I would love to see fouls punished by a power play.
Oh, wow.
So you foul
how many times?
You foul. I haven't worked out the details. you foul, you get the hell off the floor, and they play 5-on-4 until.
Oh, I love it!
Wow. Now there's such cool strategic things about this. Like, you have to play 5-on-4. You got to zone up. You got to figure out how you're guarding. And then trying to score 5-on-4 is super fun. Like, you just double their best players straight up, and they got to figure it out. I don't know when it would end or how long it would last. I haven't worked all that out. But you could even, like, a take foul would be like a 5-minute major. Like, you just got to sit for 5 minutes. So that's one way to get rid of take fouls. Like, maybe it's like a shooting foul. You got to take, it's 3.5 minutes. On the ground foul is 2 minutes. I don't know how it would work. You could still keep your foul out rules if you want. Although I think maybe you wouldn't even need them anymore because it's so much more penal to foul. And it would also kind of get rid of the hack-a-shack crap because, again, you got to sit out for 2 minutes. It's not just like some bad foul shooters got to go to the line. And you get rid of the stoppages because, or at least somewhat. I mean, you just got to inbound the ball right after instead of stopping to shoot 2 free throws and all that. So I don't know. It's a thought.
You've inspired me on something, but Andrew, I'll let you go first.
Do you like the scoring that they do in the All-Star game where it's like you play 3 quarters, the Elam theory? Do you like that?
I think it's really cool. And I heard it proposed that if they do this midseason tournament, they might do an Elam ending. I think that's great. I think that's interesting. It's just a different. It's just kind of eliminating the clock, and I think that's cool. Like, I don't mind that at all. Yeah.
Okay. I thought about it a lot when it first was introduced and whether they could actually make it something sustainable. The problem is you'd have that one game where a team's just stuck with 2 points left and the fourth quarter's 90 minutes long. But, you know, I'd enjoy it. Whether the players would enjoy it is a different story. I have an in-game rule change, but I'll let Jeremy go.
All right.
I'll do mine.
Benji, you've inspired me with that mindset. So to go to hockey, I would love to see, if it gets to an overtime game in basketball, 3v3 overtime.
Oh, hell yes.
You don't have to worry.
Full court?
100% full court.
Yes. Oh, that's fantastic. Give me that.
You give your 3 best players on the floor. There's plenty of space. The amount of cutting that you could do, just insane.
Making sure someone's back on defense. You got to make sure someone circles back.
Yep.
I was about to say that's where Obi comes in because he's just running up and down the court.
Exactly. Yeah. No, the transition offense that you would have would be so much fun. The Kings might actually be one of the best teams in basketball if they had to do it that way. Just get to overtime and then De'Aaron Fox and anyone else who's on the team. I mean, Sabonis would be probably trailing. Although if you saw,
Sabonis might have to sit.
Jakubaitis and Sabonis playing, there was a nice transition play. Jakubaitis fed Sabonis, and they got the dunks. So yeah, I'm gonna go with 3v3. I thought it was fantastic in the Olympics. Really want to see more of it. And the big three is, like I don't watch it, but the concept is really cool. Have it with players who are the best in the world.
Love it.
So my last suggestion is not from another sport, but he said it jokingly because the game was a blowout. But in Game 6 of the 2008 Finals, Lakers Celtics, and the Celtics are up by like 40 points the entire fourth quarter. Jeff Van Gundy, joking around, said, "I propose a rule change. If at any point in a game someone hits a half-court shot, tie game." And he just said, imagine like this entire fourth quarter was Lakers players just chucking balls up from half court and how much fun that could be. Imagine like you're down 15 late in the fourth. And you're like, all right, folks, we're just going to start chucking half court shots. And you just have guys coming up from the foul line on the other side of the court, taking threes. I think the entertainment value could be fun. Plus with the way guys have included or at least expanded the range in their jumpers, then Steph becomes even more valuable. I think it could at least be a fun wrinkle of a rule change.
So let me ask you though, let's say in that case, the Lakers hit a half court shot and tie it. The Celtics then penalized because they got buckets the hard way and the Lakers didn't. So is there
you have to start guarding half court shots?
But is the way for the Celtics to then get back so that they don't have to keep like going for twos and threes? Do they get to go for 40 points? Is there another amount?
It would eliminate 40-point games is my point. The blowouts wouldn't happen because of like the Thunder or the Spurs this year are just like down by 20 at the end of the first. Think about that. End of the first quarter.
They would just be launching half court threes the entire game.
Think how fun that would be for 3 quarters. They're launching half court shots.
Just Adam Silver would just be beside himself at the idea.
It's an idea that would last 2 weeks. And then they'd be like
2 weeks.
So the Houston Rockets took 75 half court shots.
I think you're slightly overrating how entertaining it is to watch half court shots.
That's all I'm going for.